Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tim and Jim Show. I am Tim Stone, here wearing my Caribbean garb on the set of Hamilton in Northeast Pennsylvania, and I am here with my good friend and trusty co-host, Jim. Take it away.
Good afternoon or good evening, good morning. We know we've got people all over the world watching. And welcome to episode 99 of the Tim and Jim Show. So we're excited to have our guest, Dan Holloway, the Chief Marketing Officer for Quicc, which is a really cool app if you want to caption your videos and really stand out for the crowd. Because remember, 80% of people watch video with the sound off. So something to think about. So Dan, welcome and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So thanks for having me. I'm currently sat in my studio in 100 degrees Fahrenheit, I think, heat. It's ridiculous over here right now. So if I'm red in the face, I've not just gone for a run. And if I sound a little bit echoey or something, it's because I've literally got fans all around me and like noise cancelling galore going on, because otherwise I will melt.
Okay? You sound great.
So about me, I've been working scaling and growing businesses, whether startups or venture capital or private equity backed, or my own ventures for a little over 20 years now.
Wow.
I think literally just over 20 years, which is quite cool. Most of my background has been weirdly in operations. So growing teams, culture, tech, infrastructure, scalability, that kind of stuff. But then that obviously segued very, very quickly into the front end work, which was marketing and product and relationship building and the psychology of selling and everything else that goes into that and then flows through everything else in the business. So most of what I do with my time, whilst I'm working with Quicc as the CMO, I also mentor and coach startup businesses, so pre-investment and post-investment. And I also have my own business, as if I wasn't busy enough, which helps essentially turn experts into influencers and everything that goes with that. So gaining authority and status, so authority within the eyes of their market and status within the eyes of their target audience, and leveraging both to then start building a scalable business. So exactly what I do with Quicc and exactly what I do with startups, I also do with individuals, solopreneurs, influencers, experts, and so on. And I'm married with 2 young children and I don't sleep. So
now, is that because of the children or is that because of the work?
A little bit of both, actually. Yeah, I've got clients in the US, in Australia, all over the place. So I'm on calls at weird hours so I can spend time with the children, which is lovely, obviously. But then it's a little bit annoying when my 3-year-old daughter kind of wakes me up by poking me in the eye and saying, "Daddy, I want some bedtime cereal," and it's 3 in the morning. And I'm like, "What?" It's 3 in the morning. Seriously? She's like, "Read me a story." I was like, "No." It's like, "Read me a story." Have you ever seen Shrek's 3rd movie? Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
Yeah. Who hasn't seen Shrek?
Do the roar. That's my daughter. She's the little annoying child sat there saying, "Do the roar, do the roar."
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's me.
So Tim, do you want to start us out with our first question?
Absolutely. So Dan, what is brand confidence anyway? I'm interested in learning from you about this, as I'm sure our audience is.
First off, let's decide, not really decide, let's define and realize and then decide what brand actually is. Because a lot of people, they say branding is marketing. And in a way it kind of is. But the way I explain this very simply is that if your marketing is the mechanism by which you are communicating to your audience, your brand is the personality with which you are conducting that communication. So your brand is literally the values, the beliefs that you hold as a person, as a team, as a brand, as a business, as an investment group, wherever you are. Your brand is your personality. So if you think of it like that, brand confidence is really you being comfortable in yourself and being your authentic self and being confident with putting the real you out into the world. Brand confidence is no different as a business as it is an individual going on a Facebook Live talking about, I don't know, their favorite style of cake. It's literally that confidence of you and your personality and your voice and your message and your truth, whatever you want to call it. That is brand confidence.
That's.
Awesome.
Are you confident with your brand, Tim? I think you should be.
I am confident. I'm confident with my brand.
Should we test that?
I definitely have.
Oh, there's a
Oh,
test.
right.
Ah,
Workshop.
I definitely
Here
have
we go.
work to do, though. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely a
Right.
priority of mine this year. What about you, Jim?
Should we do that live right now?
No.
you know what? No, I'll be brave. Let's do a little bit of that because I do wonder. I think
Right.
if you want to call it imposter syndrome and those sort of things. So no, I think
So what I do with businesses, whether it's exactly what I've done with Quicc, whether it's what I do with individuals, I run an academy as well. So if you're an individual going through the academy, so oddly enough, it's called the Authority and Status Academy. I've spent ages trying to figure out that name, obviously. But what I do with any business is you start with your values and your beliefs, right? Because we all know that know, like, and trust is a kind of the cornerstone of building relationships with your target audience. But most people start there, but they don't start the step before. So they think, I need to build know, like, and trust with my target audience. And I'm like, okay, cool. But what do you believe in? Why should someone know you? Why should someone like you? Why should someone trust you? And people think, well, they should trust me because I know what I'm talking about. They should trust me because I'm an expert. They should trust me because I've got 20 years of experience in blah. But it doesn't even start there. It actually starts before that and deeper than that. So for me, the first questions I ask is things like, give literally, whichever one of you wants to answer this, or both, entirely up to you. Give me three separate independent things that you as an individual, filtering through into your brand as a business, three things that you stand against.
ooh, against. He threw me for a loop. I thought I was going to say for, not against.
I'll explain why in a second.
I would say definitely I'm against taking advantage of people. I'm against price gouging, and I'm against low quality.
Okay. Tim, how about you? I love turning the tables during interviews. It's awesome.
Right? Don't you?
This is fun, though. This is fun.
I'm against injustice. I'm against did you say taking advantage of people, Jim?
I didn't, so you can say that.
Ooh, like taking advantage of people as a business. And I'm against inequality.
Okay. Not quite three, but I'll let you off the last one. So I start with what you stand against, right? Because psychologically speaking, the way we've evolved as humans is we predominantly are away from people, right? So you've got away from people and you've got to people. And I'll tell you a little bit of a story about how this was actually explained to me. So it was a mentor that I had, a guy called Ron, genius guy, very, very good at what he does. And he was actually telling me about he went out shopping with his wife, and they're members of their local sports club. And every year, the local sports club has like a gala thing where they just get all dressed up, and it's all fun. And they went shopping because he needed like a shirt or something. That was all. And his wife, there's him walking along the street next to his wife, and then he realizes his wife's no longer standing next to him, and he's just talking to himself. And she's standing outside this shop looking at a pair of red shoes. And he went back to her and he said, "What are you looking at a pair of red shoes? You've already got a pair of red shoes." Like a typical bloke, obviously. He's like, "What? I don't understand." And she said, "Well, I need a new pair of red shoes for the gala next week." And he's like, "But you've got a pair of red shoes," like feeling like he's repeating himself. And he said, "Well, why do you need another pair of red shoes if you've got a pair that look pretty much exactly like that, minus the sequins?" Because one of them was sparkly and the other one wasn't, apparently. And she said, "Well, I don't want to go to the gala wearing the pair of shoes I wore last year, because that will make me feel insecure in my outfit." And he was like, "Oh," so he always thought that she was a two person. Like literally, she would see a pair of red shoes and she'd think, "Pretty, ooh, I want that." But actually, it was a confidence thing. So she was moving away from feeling, not confident about herself, her appearance, and situation she was going to be in. So she was naturally an away person, not a two person. So, and this is why I start with, in brand confidence, why we start with things you stand against, because people will automatically, at least 60 or 70% of the time, connect with you more on what you stand against than what you do stand for. And it's much easier when you stand against something. If you stand against injustice, then you obviously stand for campaigning for justice. But the connection starts better with what you stand against. People will rally to you for that much quicker than they would what you stand for.
Wow, that's deep.
Get ready for the roller coaster, baby. So yeah.
Yeah. And so I put in the comments, so we'd love to hear what those of you watching out there stand against as well, because I think that's a great point, because and that's probably a great way to develop your audience and your community, right? Find those things that you have in common, in the sense of, this is, we're all against this. I mean, that's wow.
So we'll go deeper.
Okay.
Are you ready to go deeper?
Going deeper and deeper.
Yep. Rabbit
Taking
hole.
office
Here we
space.
come. Right. Get your shovel. We're about to go. So we're talking brand confidence still, right? So you're confident in the brand. So you need to be confident in yourself and truly honest with yourself about what you stand against. Because when you come out generating content, you don't just create content about standing against injustice all the time, because obviously that would be stupid unless you're a campaigner for injustice. If that's your job, great. Do content about that all the time. If you're not, and that's not your job, then probably not a great idea, because it has no relevance to what you sell. But when you're creating content, what you stand against will be just one of your core values and your beliefs, right? Now, when you're talking about generating content, now, like I said before, there's about 60 or 70% of people are away from, and the rest are to people. Now, when you're selling, people, again, predominantly, this is the most of the, can't get my words out. Most of the time, people buy with emotion before they do with any form of logic. What logic is normally used for is to justify the emotional decision that they want to make. Right? So I'll say that again. People buy with emotion, and then use logic to justify that decision and anchor that decision in that kind of decision-making process. Those of you watching who are familiar with NLP, so like neuro-linguistic programming, you will kind of recognize the terminology there with, like, anchors and everything. And when people buy with emotion, that's why, again, we start with things we stand against, because emotionally speaking, they anchor themselves onto that feeling, and that feeling then needs to have logical anchors with which to attach that emotional decision. That makes sense?
Yes.
So when you're creating content, this is why it's so powerful to have an emotional connection, because when you have an emotional connection through your content and through your brand, that then you anchor into logic, i.e., a definitive, like whether it's price-based, features of a product or service, a benefit you provided, a lead magnet, a subscription, a membership, whatever it is, something tangible. A human will instinctually anchor that emotion to the logical justification, and they'll put the two together. And when they, love like that. So when they do that, that's how you create a very authentic, deep, long-lasting connection with your audience. If you just go in with buy my thing, subscribe to this, get blah, whatever blah is, then what you're doing there is literally a commodity transaction, which anyone can do, right? And commodity transactions are really just supply, demand, price, and logistical delivery in terms of time and physical locality. And if you go down the route of a commodity transaction, you are by definition removing all emotion from that connection, and you're removing all longevity to that relationship. So you need to have the emotion in there, because if you don't, no one will care beyond that one interaction point.
Wow, that's powerful. And I think it's interesting too, because I think what I see, Tim, I don't know if you see that as well. A lot of companies, brands, whatever, it's to your point, Dan. They're just broadcasting, buy my stuff. They're not like addressing pain points. Even when when I think of, and Tim and I talk about our titles, right? It's always about you and your, not, you know, let's tell you how we can tell you about brand confidence, but we're talking about how to build your brand confidence, right? So it's something that you're struggling with, maybe, or maybe not. You want to just learn more. And so I think that's important. That's something I learned and continue to work at, is thinking, as an example, I've been attending this Podfest Global, and it was interesting. One of the speakers talked about, you don't just put out there like, hey, listen to my latest podcast. What is the pain point that you're addressing in that latest podcast episode that would make me want to listen? And I think that that's one of those things that people don't always think about. They're, even think of some of the email subject lines we see, right? Buy my stuff. I love how you bring up that whole idea of creating that emotional link, and then the logic of the wallet takes it over.
So should we get real for a second? Because some
Sure.
people might not like this. So my honest view, and like I said, some people aren't going to like this, but it's what I believe. My honest view is that there is no such thing as an altruistic act, right? So that's part one. Even if you are you campaign for charities, you give your entire, earthly possessions, even if you spend every waking moment serving other people, I do believe that whether on a conscious or a subconscious level, you do that because you enjoy it, or you do that because you feel fulfillment from it, or you do that because it's your belief or your value. I don't believe that true altruism actually exists, right? And some people say it's a bit pessimistic. Some people say, well, that's a bit negative, isn't it? I actually don't think it is. I think that's just human nature, right? I genuinely believe that human nature is such that we are, by our evolution, hunter-gatherers. I want meat because I need to eat. So it kind of starts with I want to stay in a cave because I'm bloody cold. Right? It's just nature. Can we swear on this stream, by the way? Or is it just keep it clean?
We'll keep it clean because we
We'll
are on
keep it
YouTube.
clean. Okay, so freaking cold instead then. I'll say that. So that's part one, right? So altruism I don't believe exists. Part two is that if we are predominantly an I-based kind of subconscious, and I think a guy called Maslow, if you've heard of that, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, talks about the same kind of thing. Self-actualizations at the top, and baseline, I need to eat and not be freezing, are at the bottom. But it's all based upon I. So what I see a lot is most people, when they put out content or when they create their brand, is they are being very, whether consciously or subconsciously, selfish about what they're doing. And it's very self-absorbed. So, in any Facebook group you're in, right? How many times did you see the question, how do I get more subscribers? Or how do I increase the likes on my Instagram or Facebook posts? How do I start a YouTube channel? Versus how many times do you see people put questions out there saying, how can I serve my audience better? Or how can I help blah, blah, blah? So there's no altruism in there, obviously, because that's my belief. It may not be obvious to other people, but it is to me. But the thing immediately following the I defines the kind of business and brand you are. So how can I get is very me, me, me. How can I help is very them. And I see the former much more than I do the latter.
Wow. What do you think, Tim?
Subtle.
That's pretty deep, isn't it? It almost
Yeah, I
feels
think
like
that's, yeah.
we're at Hamilton.
We're at Hamilton. Somebody start playing a song. No, I think those are great thoughts. Having the mindset that you're thinking about your audience or your the people you're trying to attract, as opposed to thinking about yourself and like, how am I going to get sales right now, right? Like thinking about the long term in terms of like building the relationships and how you can serve others, as opposed to almost a selfish mentality, right?
Right. We're still talking about confidence here in terms of brand. So I've not even strayed away from that one yet. But when you're confident about your brand, again, subconsciously speaking, if you are subconsciously, mindset-wise or whatever, when you go into a conversation saying, how can I create a sale from this conversation and get money from it? That is, and everyone knows this, you feel it. You're trying to get money from someone, right? That's just one example. So when you go into that conversation, that is the driver behind the interaction. Now, what I challenge people to do quite often is to go into that conversation instead and say, how can I help this person to achieve their goal? Granted, I'd love to be paid for it. That'd be great. But how do I, if that is your initial energy with which you're starting that conversation, I guarantee you that vibe will be felt from the other side. And it will be less of a sale and more of a relationship building conversation. And going back to the emotion, when you're confidently doing that and you're confidently building those bridges with the emotion first, sales will come much more naturally than they ever would if you did it the other way around.
Wow. That's crazy. We're going to take a quick word from our sponsor, and then we're going to come right back.
Are we live?
I was just messaging you saying I'm doing a little dance.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. So and Dan, I don't know if we have had a couple private comments. I don't know if you can turn your mic up just a little. I know we can hear you, but
Oh, okay.
just to make sure that our audience can hear you as well. But we're loving
hear
the
me now?
comments. Yeah, can hear you now. Want to thank Linda Ray and Stefan, Jonathan, and also Jeff Ettinger, Brian Schulman. Thanks for stopping by. I mean, this is some amazing stuff. I mean, just the whole idea, and I love how you say that. I know why I've gone into business as a consultant is I want to help people, and it's interesting because I have these people that are like, oh, I'm in it for the money. And it's kind of like, I think you have to have, to Jonathan's point earlier, you have to have that servant mentality.
Mhm.
I think if you really want to truly grow a brand that people are going to want to connect with. And I love how you brought up those three points earlier about like, what are the things that you stand against? Because I think we're always like thinking about what we stand for. And I mean, very, very powerful stuff.
I mean, in you, Jim, I mean, and we've talked about this before, haven't we? Where I genuinely believe that just by talking about your past and your service in the Marines, once a Marine, always Marine. I always
That's
remember
right.
that.
I corrected you
Yeah.
on that. That's right.
You did. No one is ever a former Marine. I never knew that. If you don't retire from the Marines, you're always a Marine. But with you, just by talking about why you signed up, or what drove you to stay in the Marines for the amount of years that you did, just those little stories, I believe, are for many people will be a very powerful learning curve and a lesson to give, because you spent what, 20 years? Was
Yeah.
it? 20 years, literally every day, waking up with service as your first thought. And when
Right.
everyone
I
asks you a
wasn't
question,
going to get a lot of extra money for going to work that day.
yeah, so I think a lot of people can learn from that, myself included. I mean, how would you even do that? I don't even know. But as a business owner,
It was fun. It was fun.
yeah, but business owners, that's what they do.
Right.
Businesses are there to solve problems. You are there to serve. So the mentality isn't that different.
So I think you've kind of hit on with this brand confidence exercise as well. So you've given us, I think, a couple steps. Are there some other steps that a business should take to improve their brand confidence? And I think you've already hit on a couple things. Are there some other things that you would add to that?
I think the natural choice. So I'll just move my fan out of the way. I just turned my fan up and you could hear the fan in the background. Sorry, I turned the volume up on my mic and you could hear my fan. That's what I meant. So what I think a lot of people do, and I think in turn what a lot of people struggle with, is that they believe then that they are authentic, but they're not. So they'll almost try to create authentic instances or situations or conversations or content, but the very fact that they're trying to create it makes it inauthentic. Right? So like for me right now, I mean, I call this online Vogue because like in the frame you got like pictures of my kids there. This whole mirroring thing annoys me. So my two children, so that's Emma there, and that's Samuel there. You've got my subscribe to my YouTube channel thing, and look at the D, which is the thing my son got for me. He made it at school, which is very cute. But everything else you see around me, the back panel that I've got is actually a piece of insulation board with some foam stuck to it that's velcroed over the window. So behind me is actually a window, and I have that as sound deadening. There's some things in the background, but the authentic thing is, if I on my camera just pan down slightly, I actually explained this. I was on the live just before I jumped on here with Katie Fawkes from Ecamm, and if I scroll down slightly, you see that little sock thing there?
Yeah.
The sock
So
puppet.
this is online Vogue, right? Because it's really, really hot in my studio. I've got a fan next to me, and I'm like, how do I minimize the fan noise? I've got 6 hours of live video I'm doing today, of which this is in the middle. So this is actually 5 layers of tube sock with the end cut out of it, and 2 flannels wrapped around and secured with a Velcro tie. right? As
Wow.
like a makeshift home DIY style, noise muff thing, whatever you call them, I don't know. But I mean, that is confidence in going live. For me, that's just one simple way of improving and still being able to go live, still be able to look good. But it doesn't have to be complicated. But the very fact that I'm talking about that is authentic. So I wouldn't sit there and start talking about a diagram or talking about going for some design process or some partner that I decided to engage with and I've got an affiliate relationship with or anything like that, which a lot of people do. That's inauthentic because they're trying to push and sell something. I'm just showing you exactly what it is. Like, there is no airs or graces to it. I'm just showing truth. And truth, I think, is something that people struggle to share in nearly as much detail or consistency as they could, for sure. Literally, I mean, like, even Gary Vee, is one prime example. I'm sweating here. It's so warm. Even Gary Vee, he had D-Rock just following him around, literally vlogging his day. Meetings, HR meetings, hirings, firings, eating his lunch, whatever. What you think people don't want to see or not interested in is the very thing that they will actually connect you with as a human. And if you're doing that emotional connection, I mean, how many people here, I mean, stick it in the comments if you think you will remember that if you are hot and you have a fan, then you can wrap a flannel and a tube sock around your mic. I guarantee you, quite a few people on this stream will remember that and they'll think, oh yeah, it was that Dan guy. He looked really red. Oh, bless him.
He was really mad at those guys.
But they remember that because it's truth. They won't remember if I started explaining, acoustic design and how many decibels certain fabrics reduce relative to others and the link that I'll share to some audio acoustics reseller blah person. They don't care.
Yes, absolutely. So Tim, would you like to ask the next question?
Sure. So Dan, what are some tools that can help a business stand out from the crowd?
So obviously I'm going to talk about Quicc a little bit. Obviously.
Shameless plug, and that's okay.
Shameless plug. But it's backed up by data. So emotional connection, logical justification. So if you think about Quicc as just one prime example, and I'll talk about some others as well, when you generate content, you have to look at the data, right? Don't just do what everyone else does because everyone else is doing their thing and it's them, it's not you. So if you do what everyone else does, you're literally copying what works for another individual. So it's like walking into a bar and repeating what a friend of yours said to a girl that they're trying to pick up, expecting it to work the same for you. It just doesn't work. It's just weird.
Yeah.
So when you look at the data of things for your own content, and this will vary slightly, but on average, most video content, and this is in the region somewhere between 78 and 84% of content, predominantly that consumed on mobile, is actually consumed with the sound off, right?
Yeah.
So what Quicc does is Quicc is a video captioning engine that will allow you to place burned in captions of your content into the video, making it look like and feel like your brand. So you're captioning your video content literally burned into the video, right? And you can try it for free if you want. Just go to quicc.io and sign up for a free account. You get 5 minutes of free captioning, so feel free, knock your socks off. You can play around with it, try it out, and just try and get it to look and feel the way you want it to feel. So that's the first thing. But the other thing is how you actually create that content in the first place, right? So if you think that only 80% of people, if you think that 80% of people watch with the sound off, then the other interesting statistic, and this is true pretty much most YouTube channels or videos, and Facebook and LinkedIn are pretty much no different. While the length of video varies slightly, I think the average video that performs quite well on LinkedIn, as an example, is videos of sub 3 minutes. 90-second videos actually perform about 70% better than 3-minute videos. 5-minute videos perform 70% worse than 3-minute videos. So really the sweet spot is somewhere between 90 seconds and 3 minutes. Now on YouTube, the sweet spot tends to be between 6 and 11 minutes, right? But what most people don't realize is that the watch time on video content tends to be less than 50%, right? And in some cases, it's more like 30%, depending on how good your content is. If you've got an average watch time of your video content of more than 70-ish%, you're rocking it completely. But the funny thing is that a lot of content people out there will tell you until they're blue in the face that you start a video with your hook, you have the core content in the middle, and then you end with your call to action. But if only 30 to 60% of people are watching a video to the end, no one's really going to listen or hear the thing you're asking them to do at the end,
Right.
which is really counterintuitive, which means that you're creating content for no reason. You're wasting your time, which is a weird thing to do. Because let's face it, we've got nothing but time to burn, obviously. So other tools that you really need to use are the tools that most people don't actually look into, and that's things like boring stuff, like analytics. You know, your actual data. You know, so if you use something like Quicc, great, because people will watch more of your content. But that content is still not going to get you what you need or what you want unless you know what content or what to say at what point. So if you know that on average your watch time is about 40%, you need to get your hook in there, talk about what it is that you do and how you can actually generate leads and revenue for your business in a very passive kind of way. And I'll talk about that in a second. And then you need to give value and value and value and value and value and still give a call to action at the end. But you need to get that call to action seeded in there a little bit quite early on. And if anyone's still watching who has actually picked up on what I was doing, at the beginning of this and throughout the conversations I've had, I've mentioned Quicc, I've mentioned my academy that I run, I've mentioned a number of other things, which how you can find me, content I've done, live streams that I've just done. So there's a bunch of things that I've talked about which you'll remember, but I've done that consciously, but it hasn't felt salesy because it doesn't have to, right? So in terms of tools, I don't think you really need that many tools to get started. You need a streaming platform if you're doing live streaming. You need the app on your phone. Literally, I've got a Samsung S8 right here that does a 4K video. That's perfectly fine for most people to get started on video. I've got a lav mic, which is a BYM one, something like that. It's a lav mic that Boya do. That's all you need for video content. Analytics for knowing what data points to actually look at and what content and what decisions to make from that point on. Something like Quicc can help you to increase your audience. Platforms like SendFox is a really easy email platform if you just want to get started on the cheap. ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit are really good for taking yourselves to that next level so you can help engage with people. But all the other bells and whistles that people try to add on to it, you don't really need them until you're doing easily 6 to 7 figure revenues. You don't need it. It's nice to have, it's fluffy, but it's not going to move the needle very much for the amount of effort you've got to put in at all.
Yeah, no, those are all really great points. I mean, I think that's a great part of it, right? Keep it simple. And I think as Tim and I have seen, like as we've been doing live video for, going on 2 years, and episode 100 next week with your friends from not too far away from you, Andrew and Pete.
Mhm.
I think one of those things that we have to remember, right? It's as simple as you need good audio, right? The audio is probably even more important sometimes than the video,
Yeah.
because if people can't hear you or your audio is garbled, they're going to go elsewhere. But you don't have to go out and buy a DSLR mirrorless camera. You just, it's amazing how good the cameras are on most of our cell phones. Just get a tripod.
Mhm.
And I love the idea. And it's fascinating, right? A short video can be just as impactful, or as you're showing with the analytics, more impactful than a long video, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like get to the point, tell people what you want. I know Dennis Yu is another big fan of 1 minute videos, as well. So I think those are great.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yes, yes.
Literally.
So Dan, what habits can help maintain and grow brand confidence?
So the other component that I start with directly after beliefs and values is actually goals. So, and again, sticking to the data here. One other tool you do need, by the way, especially when it's a high humidity summer in the UK, is air conditioning. So I am sweating. It's very uncomfortable. But when you really dig into your values and beliefs, like what you stand for, what you stand against, one is the opposite of the other and so on. The thing that's actually going to drive you forward and the thing that's going to help you maintain consistency, because consistency is really the only habit that you need, right? If you develop consistency, you don't really need that much else, because consistent action, and if we talk about like algorithms for a second, every single social media platform out there in the world is driven by an algorithm. An algorithm needs data with which to pigeonhole you and with which to then serve your content to the right people. So if you are not consistently giving those algorithms consistent content, consistent similar content, talking about consistent subjects and topics to this consistent audience and so on, if you're not consistent with all of those things, that algorithm is going to be walking around like a confused headless chicken. And it's haven't got a clue what the hell to do with your content. Because if your content changes all the time, and if you're inconsistent, you're posting like 5 times a week this week, once a month that month, and so on. It's just like it's all over the place. You're talking about social media now, and then you're talking about live streaming, and you're talking about cake recipes, and you're talking about your latest wine that you love, and then you want to talk about vlogging and then travel. The algorithm's just going to sit there and think, "Are you okay?" Because it won't have a clue what you're doing. So if you are consistent with everything that we've been talking about, that is the biggest, like by far. If you do nothing else, just be consistent with what you do. Because when you're consistent, the algorithms will have what they need. Your audience will know where to find you, when to find you, what content to receive from you, how you can help them. And over time, that can build that relationship. And when you do that, that's all you need to do. Like, again, it doesn't have to be complicated. Some of the most successful people in business have literally done the fewest amount of things, but they've just done it a lot. And when I look at previous roles I've had within senior leadership teams of startup businesses and venture capital and private equity backed businesses, my remit with those businesses has always been very vague, but it's always been very direct, right? So I'd say the thing, I actually spoke to a chairperson of one business during my interview, and I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he said, I need you to grow this business from 8 figures to 9 figures in terms of revenue, and I need you to do it within 18 months. And I was like, is that it? And he goes, yeah, that's your job. So however you want to do that, you've got the resources you need, do it. I was like, okay, very simple. But how I did that, and we did do that as a team, was that business had, I think, something like 15 different products across 11 different brands. So we just collapsed the brands down into 2, one primarily, one main brand. There was kind of, technically there was 2 kind of ancillary brands. And we led with one simple product. There was about 20 or so other products behind it, but there's just one product is what you led with. And that's pretty much the main thing that kicked that business from an 8-figure turnover to a 9-figure turnover. And it's just simplicity. You can do all sorts of stuff at the back end if you need to, but you need to be very, very simple with what you do at the front end and not overcomplicate it, and do that thing consistently.
Well, this has been amazing, the stuff that you're sharing. I mean, I could not agree more about the importance of consistency in whatever you do. I know, Tim and I, when we talk about, how we've been blessed to have, where we get great guests like you on is because we've been consistent, week in, week out, even if things aren't always, working out great. A couple weeks ago, Tim was under the weather. It's like the show must go on because your audience is expecting to see that. Because if you all of a sudden disappear, they're like, I guess they're not doing that anymore. And then you have to rebuild that momentum that you've attempted to build. And I mean, Tim, what are your thoughts? Any thoughts from you?
I definitely agree. The consistency is really the key over time. And we're almost on our 100th episode, and over time, our visibility has really increased. It certainly helped that we've attended events like Social Media Marketing World, and having that connection between social media and real life, which I'm looking forward to again one day. I think that consistency has really been very important.
Yeah. And well, I was going to say too, and you kind of hit on it as well, and it kind of ties into our guest next week. Andrew and Pete are real big about what they call the 90-10 rule, right? Spend 90% of your time on that one thing, and then the 10% on the other stuff. Don't try to be everywhere, all things to all people, because I think, would you agree I would call that's the bad habit, right? Trying to be everywhere.
It's better to be everything to someone than something to everyone. It's the phrase that I always have.
That's
being
deep.
everything to someone rather than something to everyone is what every business needs to be. If you're not, then you're basically a commodity business, and emotion is not there, longevity is not there, relationship is not there, continuity of service is not there, repeat business is not there. You need to have that emotional connection for sure.
Right. And so, Dan, we've got Dan's on Twitter, LinkedIn. He's leaning into YouTube now, so make sure you subscribe to the Dan Holloway Authority and Status channel, especially if you're wanting to learn more about that very thing. I know I'm gonna make sure I subscribe, as will the Tim and Jim Show channel will subscribe as well.
Oh, thank you. It's literally like 6 weeks old. I've got like
you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere, right?
I want to get to 100 by the end of the month.
There you go. There you go. Awesome. Tim, any final thoughts as we wrap up episode 99?
Just thank you so much for coming on the show. We really, really appreciate it. Yeah. As we near our
99 problems this year, but I've not been one.
No, this has been awesome. And thank you so much again for taking the time to join us today, Dan. Is a pleasure. And it's funny, right? Because we talked about this back in March, and we finally got to where we were able to get you on and get you. And this was intentional because he wanted to set the bar for Andrew and Pete. And I think you definitely did that today.
They're going to struggle. I know they're good guys, but I mean, let's face it, when you've got my red bald head, I mean, what else do you need?
There you go.
On that note,
thank you, everyone. And we will see you next week. And we will have some giveaways. So make sure you tune in. We're going to have a lot of fun. And everyone stay safe and wash your hands. And I'm going to say, I know Tim will as well, wear a mask. Take care, everyone.